Today, I am so excited to be talking to one of my favorite New York Times bestselling authors who writes in a way that makes it impossible for readers to put down her books until the very end. And while most of her books fall under the new adult and young adult contemporary romance umbrella, like Hopeless, November 9, Ugly Love, All Your Perfects, I've read them all, she also has written one of my favorite psychological thrillers, Verity, and most recently, paranormal fiction with Layla. So Colleen Hoover, welcome to the middle.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So for me, you are one of those authors who I have your books on pre-order like before I even read the synopsis because I just know that they're not going to disappoint. So when I got your most recent book, I had no idea what I was getting into. So first, I guess let's get a brief synopsis of Layla without giving too much away.
You want me to?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Layla is a book. It's a paranormal romance. It was my first venture into that genre. It's about leads in Layla that they have a meet cute, they fall in love, and then tragedy strikes, and Leeds wants to get the relationship back on track. And so he books them a stay at the bed and breakfast where they met, and things get a little weird after that. So I don't want to go too much into it. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but it was definitely a departure from what I usually write.
Well, I usually read before I go to sleep, and that was difficult because then I felt like my house was haunted. And I also, it was so, I really enjoyed it. And it was just so interesting because I went from, and I also don't want to give any too much away, but I went from like really hating Leeds to then being back on his side. So that was really cool. So when you're researching for a book like this, did any weird stuff happen, like scary, ghostly stuff, or did you find anything interesting?
You know, I am not a huge believer in ghosts. And so this book was a struggle for me in the sense that I kept trying to base it in reality. And I was like, okay, this book is different than what I usually write. And so I actually had to start over and kind of step into Leeds' shoes and write him from my point of view and how I would react if things started happening to me as someone who doesn't really believe in ghosts or creepy things or anything. Like, I'm not scared of that stuff. I'm more scared of murderers. So yeah, and it was definitely a struggle. You said that you hated Leeds most of the time, and I did too. Like, you know, I usually am so used to writing these romantic book boyfriends. With him, I just wanted to punch him so much. And but towards the end, you know, I knew how it was going to play out in the end, but the reader doesn't as they're reading it, and he does some very questionable things. So
it was so funny because I was recommending it to fellow readers, and I was halfway through and I'm like, I can't say anything. All I can say is read it because I need to discuss it with someone. There's just so much happening. But so you write about love all the time, and it's always the kind of love that's so good it hurts, like the gut wrenching kind. So where does your inspiration for these relationships come from?
you know, I want to say from my own relationship. I've been with my husband since I was 16. We were best friends, but we're not romantic at all. I'm not emotional. I'm not romantic. So like our lives are nothing like, you know, what I write about. And that may be why I write about it. I don't know. But, you know, people think all the time that I must be this very romantic person and I express my feelings all the time. And that's not true. I have no feelings. And I think that's why my books kind of are a little bit emotional because I have to push the story and until I feel something as a writer. And so I think that's why I make people cry, maybe. I don't know.
I love it. What about, do your boys read your books?
My youngest one has read a couple, maybe 3 or 4. My oldest has never read one. My middle one has read 1 or 2, I think. They're, you know, teenage boys. They're not really into it and I don't force it on them. They don't make me do, you know, video games and stuff. So we kind of keep our hobbies separate. But my youngest, he actually read Heartbones and because he's my talk through. Like we would sit and sometimes like we chill out together and then I'll just bounce story ideas off of him. And so with that one, he felt like he had a little bit of a part in it. Yeah. And so that was fun. He read it and he was like, I give it a 10 out of 10.
Oh, I love that. And what about your husband? Does he read your books?
No. He read maybe 2 or 3, but it's very hard for him to separate my imagination from my morals. And so he was in the middle of maybe someday and got mad at me because of what Ridge and Sydney did. And I'm like, wait, you're not allowed to read my books anymore if you think that I think this is okay. Like, yeah. So he's like, okay, I'm not reading anymore.
That's
So
interesting.
I
That's
don't push
funny.
that.
Do these characters stick with you after you finish writing? Because some, like, I know for me when I'm reading, they stick with me. And sometimes, like, in the thick of it or in the heat of it, I feel like I've been dumped or I'm going through this. So do you have to like, how does that work? Are you so separate that it's just, that's not even an issue?
Oh no, they definitely do. I think there's certain ones that stick with me more than others. Sometimes people will bring stuff up in books and I'm like, when did that happen? And I'll have to kind of go back into my memory for that. Because once you have a backlist of so many books and characters, it's kind of hard to keep them all straight just like that. But there's definitely some that stick more than others. With my mom, especially, when she was pouring concrete for her house for the foundation, she wrote all the family members' names in the concrete, but also Holder's name from Hopeless, because she's like, he's my kid.
That's
So
so
his name is in her concrete at her house.
real. They're all, yes, they're real while you're reading them for sure. Oh, tell me about the bookworm box.
Yeah, the Bookworm Box is a charity I started with my sisters back in 2015. And it's a subscription box, and you get monthly signed books from authors, and all the money goes to charity. And we also have a physical bookstore in Sulphur Springs, Texas, and a book signing every year. We've had to postpone because of COVID this year and last year, but it's really fun. It's called Book Bonanza. If anyone wants to buy a ticket to that, it'll be next summer.
I love it. So, can you tell me about your next book, or is it top secret?
Oh, it's not top secret. I'm just kind of stuck. We've had a lot going on this year, and I wrote Heart Bones and released that over the summer, and I have literally, like, this is the first time I've ever worked on more than one book at a time, and I have about 6 right now that I just keep kind of doing a little bit on, and I haven't figured out which one I'm going to release yet. So I don't know what's coming up next, and this is the first time I think that that's ever happened with me.
That's exciting. I can't wait to see what's next. I, again, love all of your books. I am such a fan. So thank you so much for taking the time. And do we have a date on at least one of the 6 books that we could look
I'm hoping to have one out late this summer.
Okay.
Don't hold me to that, but that's my goal.
And is there anything else that you wanted to add that you want your fans or readers to know?
I don't think so. Y'all just, I hope this year is so much better than last year, and hopefully I get to see everyone again soon. I miss seeing my readers in person so much.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, thank you, Colleen. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.